Okay, I think we'll get started. I can keep an eye open for any others who are going to join us tonight. And thank you so much for being with us here. And we are very excited that you know, the partnership with Watersheds Canada and Canadian Wildlife Federation has come to fruition. I think we had a few false starts with COVID. But the work got done later in the summer last year, and we all hopefully have the copy, you know, like a copy of our own individual reports. And we have our presentation tonight is going to focus on, you know, how we can interpret those results, as well as Watersheds Canada, through the Love Your Lake program, put together a summary report for all of Wellers Bay. So there's some really interesting insights and even possibly some actions for us at Friends of Wellers Bay and perhaps with others in the community that we can action as we move forward. So welcome again, and oh, just one moment. And I'm just going to, you know, start us off with maybe if my slides will advance. Okay. You know, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. You would think it would be seamless by now. Okay, here we go. Thank you. I'd like to start out just with a territorial acknowledgement. We begin this meeting tonight by acknowledging that we are on Indigenous land that has been inhabited from the beginning. As settlers and immigrants, we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Long before today, there have been Indigenous peoples who have been the stewards of this beautiful place. We acknowledge the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte First Nation. The territory is covered by numerous treaties. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous people the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous people have made and continue to make, both in shaping and strengthening this region, our province, and our country. As settlers and immigrants, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our community. Just a couple of quick notes. You may have noticed when you signed on that the meeting will be recorded, and we will post it on the Friends of Wellers Bay website. It says we will mute everyone, but I think we're okay. We're a pretty small group. And if you want to ask a question, you know, raise your hand or use the chat function. I'll monitor the chat while Mel is speaking. And you can also unmute yourself or use the chat function to ask your questions. So pretty informal, and you know, looking forward to a great discussion. So I'm gonna just let Melissa Dakers from Watersheds Canada kind of take over from here. Melissa's gonna share her screen and present on, you know, talk with us a little bit about what our individual reports are telling us, as well as what that summary report tells us for Wellers Bay as a whole. So Melissa, okay, whenever you're ready.
All right, just gonna share my screen. Sorry, I'm in the spot. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Okay. Sure can.
Great. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and for having me. So great working with you all. Kind of sad to see this portion of it come to an end, but I'm looking forward to our future collaborations for sure. So my name is Melissa Dakers. Most people know me as Mel. I have been working in the industry for over 20 years. I started out with working for Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, looking after their water quality monitoring program for several years before taking a little hiatus to raise my boys. I have a 17-year-old son and a 15-and-a-half-year-old son. So 2 teenage boys at home, so very busy. And my husband and I, we live on Mississippi Lake. And we also have property just north of Calabogie on Scully Lake. So living on the water is very important to me. And it's so I understand why people love to be on the water and what it brings to you for your mental health, for your physical health. And that's why I wanted to work in this industry. So I am the Habitat and Stewardship Program Manager for Watersheds Canada, and I've been with them now for over 7 years, and I love it. We are a small but mighty nonprofit organization. Our main office is out of Perth, Ontario, but we share our programs nationwide, which is fantastic. We now have partners in BC and in Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, just to name a few. So I'm so happy that I've gotten to work with you all. And I'm going to talk to you tonight a bit about the Love Your Lake program and about your reports and what they mean. So why don't we just get started? Now it's my turn to learn how to move my slides. So I'm just going to start off by saying that lakes are facing challenges, and that's the whole reason that Watersheds Canada does what it does. We want to protect Canada's fresh water for future generations, and we do so through educational materials and resources and programs and sharing them with different organizations like the Friends of Wellers Bay in order to help protect this precious resources that we have and that we love. So lakes are right now facing numerous challenges in increasing development pressures, increasing population densities, and increasing resource use. And we've noticed, especially since the pandemic, more and more people want to live on the lake. And why wouldn't they? I mean, water brings a peace and a calm to a lot of people. But unfortunately, a lot of people are also trying to bring the city to the lake. And that's not how that lake was naturally created. And it's now facing decreasing wildlife habitat, degrading water quality, algae blooms. And so we need to start looking at the lake as a living entity and seeing how our actions on our properties are affecting the water quality in the lake that you all love. There's a reason that you guys all came to have property on Wellers Bay. It's because you love what it is and what it stands for. But if we don't start looking at our own actions and how we can help, that lake may not be what it was 50 years ago. So that's where our project started off from. And basically, this was a partnership with Fisheries and Oceans Canada and Quinte Conservation. And it was the Pugna Shiner Landowner Engagement and Shoreline Habitat Restoration Project. It was a 2-year project that we've been working on with funding from Fisheries and Oceans Canada, specifically their Habitat Species at Risk program. And we were focusing on restoring critical habitat for the Pugna Shiner on West Lake, East Lake, and Wellers Bay. And we did so by providing programs to the local communities. And the programs that we ran were the Love Your Lake program, like mentioned before, with Shoreline Assessment surveys, the Natural Edge program, and we partnered with Quinte Conservation on this. They're one of our partners. And aquatic vegetation surveys as well that Quinte Conservation underwent. And they were able to look at all the vegetation in Wellers Bay and try to get numbers and identify the species, whether it's native or invasive, and make recommendations on how you can improve the lake quality. We also developed communications material, education materials, videos, fact sheets, and connecting with you all through webinars and AGMs press releases and social media. We wanted to bring forth what the pug-nosed shiner was and how your actions are affecting this species at risk. You can find a lot of our information on watersheds.ca on our website. There are a lot of resources there, as well as our YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos there with more information, as well as other webinars that we conduct monthly through our freshwater stewardship community. So there's a topic for everybody. So feel free to take a look at that in your own time. And just in case you don't know what a pug-nosed shiner is, this is the little guy or girl. It's a member of the minnow family, and it is listed as a threatened status. So a lot of work is being done to identify locations where it is still inhabiting, and it is extremely vulnerable to declining habitat quality. So that's why our focus was on it. It's kind of like the canary in the coal mine. Once it's starting to be affected, you know that there's some issues that we want to address. So a lot of common goals that we're finding throughout all lake communities, like associations, they want to reach out, right? So they want to reach their community. You want to increase awareness. You want to encourage land management and stewardship practices, and you want to improve your overall lake health. That is common throughout all lake communities or river communities. Those are common goals. So that's what we focus Love Your Lake on. So in case you aren't aware, the Love Your Lake program, just a little background, every property on Wellers Bay was assessed, and it was done so with trained staff from Watersheds Canada, and we use a standardized assessment protocol that we have been developing for over 10 years now, and it is by observation only via boat. So we had fantastic boat drivers that volunteered to take our staff around and to assess the properties last summer, and I want to thank everyone that helped out. We couldn't have done it without you. I know last year was extremely low water levels, so it was difficult to find access to boats. Some were stuck on lifts, and I know water levels are a huge issue for you all. So I really appreciate everyone that helped us out to acquire this data. We looked at structures and docks. We looked at erosion control structures. So that would be what's along your shoreline, whether it's rock, whether it's a concrete wall, whether it is natural. We also looked at vegetation and habitat. And we basically looked at your property from the water 30 meters back. We also looked at the aquatic environment in front of your property as well. What type of vegetation is there? Are there any invasives on the property? The list goes on and on. But landowners are now looking into getting their personalized property reports. And there are details in each report about the state of your shoreline and recommended actions for improving lake health for people and wildlife based on our observations. We also compiled value surveys. Everyone was mailed out last spring, early summer, an introduction letter to Love Your Lake, and in it was a value survey, and I'm going to go into that more a little bit later. And we've compiled the results from the ones that we received back, as well as we analyzed Wellers Bay on a whole. So we looked at all of the assessments and wanted to see at what state your lake is at and how you can make improvements. And that was provided to your association as well. And no personal information is given out in those lake level reports. It's very generalized. I want to make sure that you all know that privacy is #1 with us with Love Your Lake. We do not share addresses or any personal information with anybody else. So recently, you should have received in the mail a survey code letter. Now, I know I've received some emails and calls that some people have not received theirs, and that does happen. Our data that we have is provided by your municipality, and sometimes the data is a little bit older, whether there's turnover on your property, you're new to the lake, or they have just provided misinformation, unfortunately. But if you have not received a survey code letter, please let me know, because I can email you a copy of your letter that does have your specific information on it. So in this letter, you'll notice in this red oval here, this is very important information. So you want to go to myreport.loveyourlake.ca. And that is where you can enter your personal survey code. So your survey code will be on this letter, and you can complete the transaction to receive your free downloadable PDF of your property report. If you wish to purchase a printed copy, you can do so for $20. But hold on a second. I want to go back for a second. I do recommend looking at the downloaded one first, because sometimes we can be off by a property or two, and some people know that. I know we were off on Karen's. The assessment parcel data that we do have is not always correct. Maybe somebody actually owns 2 parcels, or there's a small access, like a road allowance situation going on. So sometimes we're off by one, but we have assessed every single property, and that's where photos come in, and we want to make sure that it's your report before you choose to purchase it. So I just ask you to download it first before you, or to at least take a look at it before you purchase it. But it is a fantastic resource, and I do highly recommend getting a copy of it. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Included in this letter were also some inserts. So the Friends of Wellers Bay decided to put in an insert brochure for you guys. And what it is it's talking about Friends of Wellers Bay and how you can get involved in this fantastic association and work with these fantastic volunteers. So they've got some information on how you can get a hold of them and what they're doing and how great they are and how you can become part of that. So that was in the letter, along with another insert from Quinte Conservation. So like I said, Quinte Conservation is our delivery partner for the Natural Edge program, and they will be moving forward with planting. So they have shoreline planting kits available, and I'm going to talk a bit more about it later on, but this is the insert that they provided with the letter. They also have other citizen science that you can get involved with, and that's included in the letter as well. If you're interested in water monitoring, or if you're interested in different wildlife or turtles or frogs or whatever it is, they have a program that you can get involved in. So once you go to the website, like I said, it's myreport.loveyourlake.ca, this screen will pop up, and you have an option of get my survey code or begin. So if you didn't get a survey code, you can actually just say, get my survey code, and you can click it and you can put in your address, your property address on Wellers Bay, and it should look up the report and be able to bring it up for you. If you do have any difficulties, please, again, contact me. If you have a survey code, just click begin, and it'll bring you to this blue screen where you can enter your code, and you can see there's 2 choices there. You can order your free downloadable report, or you can order your printed copy, and it will be mailed to you. Okay, next, just gonna go to the next screen. So this is the cover of your shoreline property report for 2021. It is generated, each one is specific to your property, so no 2 are alike, sections of it anyway. And it is specific to your shoreline from our assessment data, and it has recommended voluntary actions in it according to our observations. It also has fantastic local resource page in there and other resources for you that I'll go through in a moment. And it's non-regulatory. So just to reiterate again, we're not a government agency. We are a nonprofit charity, and we cannot force you to do the work. We just ask you to do the work. We ask you to just take a few actions on your property to help your lake. So again, it's non-regulatory. So we're just trying to educate you all. So inside your report, you'll see an introduction to the partners and the funders of the program. You will also learn a little bit more about Love Your Lake, and it talks a bit more about that. And we do have loveyourlake.ca, which has fantastic resources on it as well for property owners. So, and you can take a look and see all of the thousands and thousands of property assessments that we have done across Canada. I think we're at, I don't even know. I think it's at over 180 lakes across Canada we've assessed now. So we are very excited that you guys were able to participate. The next section is about your shoreline assessments. So it talks about for each property, we took photos from the water. No people are in the photos because we respect privacy. And they're just taken so that we know which property it is. We classify your shoreline, we develop we look at development such as docks, stairs, decks, boathouses, retaining walls. We also look at your terrestrial and aquatic wildlife habitat, the presence and absence of natural shoreline vegetation, presence of erosion. I know that's a huge one too with flooding issues. And then we suggest restoration and protection recommendations, and such as native plantings, erosion control options, wildlife habitat enhancements that you can take part in, as well as shoreline access improvements. The next portion is your actual assessment. So each person will, I think it's on page 5, we'll see this, and this is just a sample that we use to show you, but there's a photo of your property, your identifying property. So if when you open up your report, you look and the photo is not yours, just let me know because it could be your neighbor's, it could be that, but the assessment is correct to the photo, okay? We list your address and the assessment roll number and the report number as well. That's great information. And then we talk a little bit about, in general, about shorelines. We also have a highlight section there for your individual property and things that we noted on your property as well. And we look at all of the things that I mentioned before, from erosion to pathways to septic systems. We look at as much as we can from a boat. The next section, because I can't really go into the personal report too much because it is individual to your property. So if you do have any questions about specifically your property and what we recommended or stated, please give me a call or shoot me an email and we can discuss it one-on-one, and I can explain things further. But in the report, you will also receive this section. So this is the Shoreline Information Resource. This is fantastic. Especially if you are new to the lake or living on a lake, there is information on everything you could think of. Please share this information, especially with somebody that's new. A lot of people don't realize they're on a septic system. That's happened on my lake many times. They think that they're still on city water. They don't understand that you can't flush certain things. We also talk about shoreline lighting. We look at wildlife and wildlife habitat and what you can do. The different types of docks. A lot of people don't know that there are different types of docks, and some are better for habitat and some aren't. We look at wells and lawns. Lawns is a huge section, and erosion control, how to prevent erosion and how to control erosion that has happened. So there's a lot of great information in here. So there's 12 chapters, each are a few pages long with some fantastic resources and educational material for you. So that's the individual property report. I'm gonna talk now about the other report that I provided the Friends of Wellers Bay, and that is the value survey information and the lake summary report. Because I think this information is really valuable for everybody to have. Besides knowing how your individual property is functioning, and maybe there's things you didn't realize, this is the next thing that I think is really going to help everyone. Basically, the value survey and the lake summary report. So this report consists of 2 parts. And the first portion is the summary of the value survey information. So like I mentioned earlier, last year we mailed out a survey to everyone, and it was distributed to 347 property owners. We were on Wellers Bay, and we received back 31. So little disappointing, wish more people would have filled it out and had their say, but we're going to look a little bit about what those people mentioned and what stood out the most. Basically, the value survey was conducted to gauge the opinions of shoreline property owners and what's important to you all about your lake, and what you believe are the biggest issues facing Wellers Bay. The second part of the report is the summary of the observations from our shoreline assessments. And sorry, someone asking a question? No, okay. This section can be used as a source of information on the current physical conditions of Wellers Bay, and as well as a baseline for compared future assessments. So like I mentioned earlier, the Love Your Lake program has now reached 10 years. And this year, we're actually going to be repeating a Love Your Lake assessment on Lake Clear. And they were one of our first lakes we ever assessed. So we're going to look back and compare the data, look at the photos, look at the changes that have been made, and see if any improvements have been made. So that's a great resource for them as well. It also can be used by your lake association and other partners to determine opportunities for restoration, education, and stewardship on your lake at a lake-wide level. So like I mentioned, in 2021, 347 properties were assessed by us, and that totaled over 45 kilometers of shoreline. So this is a copy of the Shoreline Survey that went out. I know the writing's a little bit small, but I just wanted to show you in case you remember seeing it, and just to kind of trigger some memory. So this is what stood out to me when I went through your report. Like I said, the number of people were 31 out of 347. Out of that 31, 6 were seasonal property owners, 20 were permanent property owners, 2 were owners of vacant land, and 2 business owners responded to the survey. Some of the other things that we noticed was of the seasonal residents that have 2 or 3 season cottages, 6 of them, so all 100%, did not plan on winterizing their cottage. They wanted to keep it as a seasonal property. So I thought that was kind of neat to understand. And then the number of years that people have been seasonal or permanent ranged from 1 year to 63 years, with an average of 22 years. So it's interesting to see that there are such a variation of respondents and of people on Wellers Bay. So this information is important because some of our stewardship recommendations would be, so we want to promote environmental stewardship, obviously, on your lake, and seasonal and permanent shoreline owners will respond to differently to your messages and to your events. So knowing your makeup, how many are seasonal versus how many are permanent, you should tailor your messaging accordingly. So, and also long-term versus more recent property owners, they're going to have different perspectives. They're going to value Wellers Bay differently. They're there for different reasons. And they may have different ways of managing their property and how they use their lake. For example, if you've got someone that's just bought a property within the last year, they're excited. They're excited because they're on the lake now. They may become a weekend warrior. That's what I like to call them, where they play hard. So they want to sea-doo, they want to fish, they want to swim, they want everything that lake has to offer because they're excited. Then you get someone who's been on the lake for, say, 63 years. They value the lake a little bit differently. It is a part of their heritage. It is a part of their memories. It is a part of their family. They want their grandkids, their great grandkids to continue owning that property for future. So they tend to value it a little bit more. I'm not saying that someone new doesn't value their property. I'm just saying that they're not quite there yet, right? They're at the excited newbie stage, like the honeymoon stage, so to speak. So how you talk to those property owners and get your messaging across, you may need to do a couple different ways in order to reach everyone. So we also looked at in the survey, recreational activities. So your top 3 recreational activities on Wellers Bay were swimming, canoeing or kayaking, and fishing. Those were your top 3. So our recommendations would be, you want to focus on what people value. So, and these tend to be the top 3 on other lakes as well. This is high up. This is usually why people move to the lake. So you can use these as entry points for reaching out to people about lake stewardship. For example, I've got an example here on the screen. If there's a high number of people that love fishing, start talking to shoreline property owners about how their property affects the fish habitat. Okay, if you have runoff going in, sedimentation, anything that's going to affect the fish habitat, then those people will become concerned and will just care a bit more and realize that you need to put it into their perspective. So use this information in this report to talk to people about stewardship and environmental actions. It's a good way to get people interested. So another one were elements that impact personal enjoyment on the lake. And your top 3 were water quality, tranquility, scenery, and views. So again, you want, these are the important issues for people. This is why they come to the lake, right? Is to sit on the dock and have a cup of coffee and enjoy the sunset or the sunrise, or it's for those views. And so you need to tailor your messaging towards that. If swimming is important, like I said before, maybe someone wants to get involved in a water sampling program so that they know that water safety will be addressed. Shoreline property owners are more inclined to support the change if their family will benefit. So that's important. So you've got to be able to relate to people and understand why they're at the lake. So when we asked what issues people thought Wellers Bay was facing, water levels was number 1. Water quality, again, is number 2. And water quality is always up there. Water levels depends on the water body. And noise pollution. We're seeing a lot more bigger boats on water bodies, probably on Wellers Bay too. Maybe you have wake boats because people are enjoying wakeboarding, water skiing, tubing, and they make a lot of noise. I'm not going to lie. They're noisy. Sea-doos, that's another one. But these are the issues that the 31 people, the top issues. So again, focus your specific actions and create action plans around them. You can increase people's knowledge and guide them, and look at making suggestions based on these issues. So, and I feel like I'm repeating myself again, but I just wanted to bring it forward, because when you talk about having eaves troughs on your house and making sure it doesn't run straight into the lake, that affects your water quality, right? So if you know someone's concerned about water quality, you can tie it into other stewardship actions that will help improve the water quality. Okay, so shoreline, I'm just trying to read this. Okay, so shoreline property owner information. Okay, so of the 31 respondents, 26 said they were interested in participating or learning about activities and how they affect water quality, wildlife habitat, and the overall health of the lake. And when asked, they would be interested in participating. So this is 26 want to learn about it, and 11 will do it. So education, I think, is going to be a key thing for Wellers Bay. People want to know. They're not sure if they want to participate yet, but they do want to know a little bit more about about shoreline health, about environmental practices. Okay, so I guess education is a key parameter for Wellers Bay. And the top two barriers preventing property owners from undertaking stewardship was lack of time and the lack in funds. So yes, planting a shoreline can be expensive. If you're developing a piece of property, you can keep the vegetation that's already there and it doesn't cost you a thing. So there's ways of working around it. So, and this is a great way for the Friends of Wellers Bay to get involved. For instance, check if there are any funding programs that offer native plants for free or at a reduced cost, like the Natural Edge program. That's a great one. You can distribute information on the importance of natural shorelines. And there's other great resources at loveyourlake.ca. Fantastic resources that are free, that you can access, that you can download, and you can share amongst your community. And if you notice that there's a topic that we're missing, please let us know, because we're always adding and looking for more topics that concern property owners. Okay, so in conclusion, for the value survey, there's not one standard message that will work for all shoreline property owners, okay? So repeating things is not a bad thing. If you have a social media blast that's going out, change the picture or make it go out a few times, because people think, oh yeah, I was going to sign up for that and I forgot. Thanks for the reminder. So having it in different formats is huge. The other thing I want to point out too is not everybody is on social media. Like, for example, my parents live on my lake as well. They don't have an email address. They could care less about the computer. So we make sure on our road association that they get a paper copy of the AGM minutes or the environmental educational material. We have a lot of property owners on our lake that don't have those abilities or don't want to be online. So catering to different generations, to different property owners, that's huge. And by varying your activity and your message and how the message is delivered, you're going to reach more people. Let your shoreline property owners know why stewardship actions are important. And let them know that it doesn't have to be time consuming or costly. They can change one little thing on their property. And if everybody did that, it would be huge. It would, it's a ripple effect And it also, if someone does something on their property and the neighbor notices and like, wait a minute, now in front of your property, it's no longer algae blooms because you've planted this shoreline. Maybe I'll do the same thing, and it's a ripple effect. But the biggest thing is make it fun. Incorporate a contest or a prize or a newsletter in your newsletter or your email. Maybe it's the property that has the longest shoreline buffer, or a property that planted the most native plants in one summer, and have a little prize for them, or even a little recognition. That goes a long way. And make it family friendly, because it's the next generation that are watching and that are learning. A lot of people come to the lake for their families and to spend time with their families. So if they can get children involved and they're not plugged into something, that's huge. Getting your child to look for frogs, getting your child to catch minnows, to look at different plants, that goes a long way, in supporting the next generation. Oops, sorry. Okay, the next section I am going to talk about is your lake summary report. And so this is a summary of all the data we collected on every property. We did not, like I mentioned, there's no names or properties mentioned. It is in general terms only. Okay, so we looked at all of these different areas. I'm not going to go through all of them because it's a big report, but I am going to pull out a few that stuck out to me. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, so these are a few of the stats. 227 properties have 50% or more developed, manicured, or degraded shorelines. It's a combination of those. And I'm going to go into those definitions in a minute. And this, you gotta remember, this is out of 347 that we assessed. 236 properties had 50% or more developed, manicured, or degraded riparian zones. So a riparian zone is from the water 30 meters back, so about 100 feet. That's the area that we looked at. And that is the most critical area for habitat and wildlife development. 194 people their main residence is between 10 and 30 meter setbacks. If you were to develop a brand new property now, most municipalities are trying to do the 30 meter setbacks. Obviously, there's some rules if they've got a smaller parcel, but that is the ideal, is 30 meters or back will affect the lake less. 227 properties have surface erosion in some form. So that's whether it's a little bit of vegetation removal and the land is collapsing. We noticed it on 227 properties. We also noticed, this is just a fun fact, 154 post docks. There's nothing wrong with a post dock. We just noticed a lot of them. And 206 properties had along their shoreline loose rock or riprap as an erosion control structure. So more natural instead of armor stone. That's a lot. So it is showing us that you guys do face erosion issues, probably due to your water level fluctuations and flooding. And although that is it's a good solution, you also need to plant behind it, because if the water does go above that or it gets behind it, your land can still erode away. So you want to also secure it with plants, not just the rocks. 171 properties are mowed lawns to the water's edge or the erosion control structure, such as the riprap. So no plants at all along your property. And 123 are mowed to a buffer. So the buffer would be your plantings. 163 properties need to expand their buffer, although some will find it difficult. They'll never reach the 30 meters because of property size. We understand that, and that's stated in your report. And 121 properties need to create a buffer. They don't have any shoreline plantings at all. So this is what I'm talking about when I talk about your riparian zone and your shoreline classification. So the first photo is an example. These aren't from your lake. These are just from our reports. Oh, they're a little bit pixelated. I'm sorry about that. Natural. So when we say something is natural, the area shows no significant human disruption. So it's natural vegetation or land cover. Regenerative, that's a good word. The natural vegetation was once removed in the past, but now it is in the process of growing back towards a more natural state. So we call this a no-mow zone. People let their slope just regenerate, and it'll come back with all its native plants. The top one here is what we call manicured. So these areas, the vegetation has either been removed and is replaced with a manicured lawn or an artificial turf, ornamental gardens, man-made beach, and or agricultural crops are also considered manicured. And this is just, I'm going to talk about it a bit more in a minute, but manicured lawns are just basically, the water can just run off straight into the lake. And that's where our concern is. For developed, when we talk about developed, we're referring to any buildings, structures, impervious surfaces. So pavements, paving stones, driveways, pathways, anything where the water can't get into and is running off. So that's what we mean by developed. And then degraded. Degraded areas, we didn't find a lot of them, but it's when natural vegetation is lost, and there's soil erosion, there's undercutting on a bank. You can see exposed roots or shrubs and trees, and they're significant. And basically, you'll see this a lot after a major flood. You tend to see more degraded sites. So lawns, basically, they're 49% of the property owners on Wellers Bay were mowed to the water's edge. So when a lawn is maintained to the water's edge, the natural cover and the native vegetation are no longer present to slow down water and allow for nutrient filtration. So pollutants, contaminants, nutrients, anything harmful can easily be carried into the lake. It'll flow right down like a driveway. And that can harm the water quality and the local integrity of your lake and of your wildlife. So manicured lawns, although it is a type of vegetation, have very short root systems. So they're not going to hold the soil as well as a tree would. When you see a tree, whatever you see above the ground, is what's below the ground. So that's what's holding your soil in place, your land in place. So if you're losing property due to erosion, your roots aren't deep enough and aren't holding the land. So having shrubs and trees will hold your property in place and prevent erosion. And it also prevents increased sediment in your lake as well. So this is a little picture that we've developed of an ideal property. Now I know Wellers Bay is a little bit different than, say, a cottage up north, but this is kind of has different features that I just wanted to point out. So you can see this property, the house, the main structure, the main building is 30 meters back from the water. And it has a curved access way or pathway to the water. The curve is important, even whether it's sloped or not sloped, because have you ever noticed, I'm going to use the example of Canada geese. Have you ever seen a lawn to the water's edge and it's full of Canada geese? The reason being, all those Canada geese love that lawn. It's open, there's no vegetation, and they can escape from predators on both sides very quickly. If you have a curved pathway or a curved access way surrounded by vegetation, Canada geese will not access your property because it's too dangerous. There are too many spots for predators to hide, so to speak, even if you don't have them there. They think they're there. So that helps. Also, when there's runoff, now this path ideally would be made from a material that's permeable, so like gravel or wood chips or mulch, so that it can infiltrate all the water and it won't run off. But also by having it on a curve, it's not going to run directly into the lake. It's going to infiltrate into the plants that are around it. And those plants and nutrient will pick up the nutrients and use them instead of the nutrients going straight into your lake and causing your aquatic vegetation to grow. So if you have excess weeds in front of your place, it could be because you're feeding them with your lawn fertilizer. That's number one. Also, you'll notice, depending on the size of your plants, you also have the root systems you can see in this picture holding the land in place. And the other thing I want to point out, this property does have, it has its dock and it has its access. So in an ideal world, we kind of look at 25% is your access point to the water, and the other 75%, why don't we give it back to nature? And why don't we let it be more natural? Because most wildlife, all wildlife, 95% of wildlife use this riparian zone for life. So why don't we help it out a bit? Because it was here before we were. The aquatic vegetation, you can see they've cleared a little spot here next to their dock so they can get in the water and they can swim, and that's fine. And then they've left some aquatic vegetation off to the side. When you have large waves on your lake, the energy from the wave action will erode away your property. But if you have vegetation along your shoreline, it actually dissipates the energy. And by the time it gets actually to your shore, there's no energy left to erode away, and the plants are also holding all that soil. So this is just kind of a little demonstration of some things that you can do to your property. So some of the next steps. From our reports and our surveys and everything, the top 3 actions identified by shoreline property owners on Wellers Bay to benefit your lake and your community would be to create and enforce stricter rules for development. That's huge. Working with developers to do it in a sustainable way, to make sure that your setbacks are further back. It goes a long way. Limit boat wakes near your shore. This is going to prevent erosion. When you're going off in your boat, don't just take off. Go off slowly, because that backwater, you're disrupting all the sediment. You're also eroding away your property. Same with tubing. If you're tubing, do it out in the middle. Don't do it right against the shoreline. That's going to cause a lot of problems for your neighbors' properties, as well as the noise, because noise does carry on water. And I think the other thing too is, like I mentioned before, is to provide educational materials to your property owners on a variety of subjects, whether it's a couple times a year, make it like, maybe it's a quarterly fact sheet or information that your property owners can look forward to getting, something new that they can learn about their property and about sustainable stewardship actions that they can take. I stole this picture from your website. It's beautiful, by the way. So shorelines, It is recommended that shoreline property owners engage in shoreline naturalization planting projects to further decrease the manicured, developed and degraded percentages and increase the regenerative and natural percentages. And this can be done in ways. I know views are a huge thing. If I had this view, I'd want to protect it too. So I understand you don't want to put a wall of trees up so that you don't have the view, but you can trim around them. Having a tall tree, you can still see around it, trimming your hedges or your shrub, your native shrubs. So they're a little bit lower, but they still have the root base, will help prevent erosion as well. So there are compromises that you can make. The other thing I wanted to mention was this presents an opportunity for shoreline property owners of Wellers Bay to increase the overall quality of the lake by maintaining, protecting, enhancing natural shoreline properties. To restore riparian and shoreline areas to a more natural state, property owners are encouraged to take action. And there are plenty of ways that the Lake Association, Friends of the Wellers Bay, can encourage and get involved. You could host naturalization days, native planting workshops, or featuring properties on the lake that have naturalized shorelines in emails and in newsletters to inspire other property owners. Regenerative properties should also be encouraged to maintain their properties in a natural state by allowing the vegetation of their property to continue to regenerate and grow naturally. Have those no-mow zones. When you go to the lake, you don't want to do a lot of work and a lot of maintenance. Allowing specific areas, certain areas, to stay natural gives you more time to play at the lake. But it also gives nature and wildlife, fish and wildlife, a fighting chance, and also improves the lake quality of Wellers Bay. And that's why you're all here. It's for that view, for that tranquility, for that peace. So like I mentioned before, Quinte Conservation is doing our Natural Edge program. They're our delivery partner, so you can contact Maya and she will help you get started if that's something you want to do, or give you more information in other areas. I really appreciate everyone being here tonight, and I will answer any questions if anybody has any. Thank you. I'm just going to stop.
Thank you so much, Mel. Great presentation with so much really useful information for sure. I know, when I looked at my report, like my individualized report, there was a lot of good takeaways from there and things that kind of made me go, okay, so there are things that I'm doing that I can improve on for sure. I mean, when we bought this property, it was like grass to the shore. And then the floods happened, and then we ended up with this giant beach. So it's very difficult for things to take hold. We also participated in the watershed, the Natural Edge program. So we've had some success with that, with the plantings. But I think there's more that we could be doing on our shoreline that can maybe move it to a more natural state, and that I'm certainly going to be looking into further. So thank you for that. The report was really helpful.
Great.
I don't know, does anyone else have any questions that they might want to add or ask Mel while we have her here? If you have something maybe that requires, like you've read through your report and something maybe sticks out that you don't quite understand or would like a little explanation on. Any comments or thoughts? Oh, sorry, I'm nothing in the chat.
Okay. Maybe I explained it well then.
Well,
but like
you certainly did. Yeah.
And like I said before too, if somebody has something they want to say to me one-on-one, I'm always available. Feel free to give me a call or throw me an email and we can discuss it, or I can clarify something. So I'm always available.
And incredibly passionate, I will say too. Every time you and I have spoken, I know that you are very keen on what you're doing, and that's really great.
Great.
So the other thing that I wanted to mention too is the summary report and the values report. There's a lot of really great information in there for Friends of Wellers Bay as an organization. And I'm really looking forward to kind of digging a little deeper into that with my fellow board members, and just seeing where we might be able to enhance some of our offerings. And we are and have been involved in sampling. So we do, we are active in the Water Rangers program and sample monthly. And we're also active. We started that, I believe, last year. And then we've been sampling for the Lake Partner program for more than 10 years now. So lots of really good data over the long term. And you mentioned that this program is there are a lot of lakes involved and there's a lot of data that's being collected. So I think that's really helpful for a bigger picture view as well. So, taking it from individual to the lake or the bay, as in our case, and all the way to provincially and perhaps federally as well, right? So, that's really good. And I just, if I could for a moment, so a couple of things. Takeaways for me as chair of Friends of Wellers Bay is to, really take some time to talk about the outcomes of the values survey and the report. Interestingly, the values survey is very reflective of the State of the Bay report and the survey that we did around that time, which was 2017 or 2018. Lots of, sort of similar information that was gleaned. Water quality is of utmost importance to people, and we're looking at more ways potentially to participate as a partner, say with Quinte Conservation, with yourselves in future programs, so that we can be on top of what's happening with the water quality of Wellers Bay. And we're a small board, we're 7 people, and we're all volunteers, of course. And so we find that to be able to do a lot of things is a bit challenging because we're small, but we do get a lot done. And we're always looking for new board members if anybody is particularly interested, perhaps in learning a little bit more about being on the board, or even just being part of a program. Like, we would love to have someone else who could do water testing through the Water Rangers, like the Water Rangers sort of bag of testing because we're testing on the Consicon side monthly, but if there was someone on the other side of the bay that would be interested, we would love to get them involved. And so, in activities that we do as well, it doesn't need to be, sort of the monthly board commitment, but as we're doing different activities, we would love any kind of assistance from folks interested who live in and around the bay. I was, when you were presenting on sort of the summary of values of what's most important to people, those are essentially our goals as Friends of Wellers Bay in our strategic plan, right? So, environmental protection, shoreline, community building and communication, and then we put governance as something that was really important to us, just to make sure that we're a well-functioning organization. So anyway, just, you know, and I did want to mention as well that on August the 20th is our AGM. So if you'd like to learn more about Friends of Wellers Bay and the board, our AGM is taking place at the Legion in Consacon on the 20th at 10 a.m. It's a Saturday, and there will be a social time after, which we're really looking forward to because we haven't been able to do that in like since 2019. So sorry, I should have my video on. I apologize for that. We're you know, kind of looking forward to you know, being able to see people again, and Mel actually is going to be there with a display, as is
it's actually going to be it's actually going to be one of our Love Your Lake assessors, Kayla.
Okay,
Kayla's going to come out so she can answer all your questions. We'll have tons of information for you on different subjects. Great. So yeah,
thank you. And we've invited Quinte Conservation to participate as well.
Oh, great.
And then, you know, we'll have a short business meeting, which we have to do, and then hopefully just kind of a meet and greet and get to know people a little more. And you know, our board was the majority of our board was essentially elected during COVID. So, you know, like we actually met as a board face to face for the first time just a few months ago.
Wow.
So, you know, working really well together, but, you know, not having laid eyes on each other physically yet. So it's been really great, though. Amazing team to work with, and you know, we're slowly but surely getting things done. So I'm not sure. Does anybody have? I'm just talking away here. So does anybody have?
I did notice. I noticed a couple questions. Somebody asked if that they, or said that they hadn't received their report information. I am working on a few of them. I have gotten a couple requests. It's just the end of my field season. So we're just finished planting, and now I can get more into some of the reports. So I do have some of them on the docket right on my desk right now that I'm going to be sending out. Either at the end of this week or early next week. Also, if you did not receive it and you're looking for information, let me know what your address is. Just state that you're on Wellers Bay, because we did assess 4 different lakes last year. So just an address, kind of, it's easier to find information. Also, a little bit of information about your property. What color is your cottage or home? Do you have a dock? Do you have a boat lift? Retaining wall, any key identification of your property from the water helps me a lot, because when I'm going through reports and pictures, I want to make sure that it's yours. So those key details are very helpful.
Great, thank you. I will say that, you know, this report, we are going to go through it with, you know, really closely. And, you know, just to the people who are on the call, you know, if you have any interest in perhaps, you know, moving forward with some of the recommendations that have been put forward, and, you know, either personally or, you know, as a whole for Wellers Bay, please reach out to me. You know, let's talk about how, and we're glad to sort of direct you if you need specific information on something as well. And, or if you want to get involved, you know, I'd be happy to chat more with you and just find out ways that, you know, we can get you involved in some of our community activities, or, you know, some educational work that we would really like to do moving forward. Communication and community building is kind of on our front burner right now. You know, moving forward for this our fiscal year ends May 31st. So moving forward for this year into next, you know how it works. You know, we would like to focus on, you know, sort of that community building and communication piece, and partnering with Quinte Conservation, because I know they have a lot of programs and services and information that is relevant to all of us as property owners on Wellers Bay. So, you know, happy to help in any way that we can.
And talk to your neighbors. Let them know about the reports, because some people may not realize that they're available.
Yeah, so any final questions, or, anything we can answer for you, or while you have us? I'm not too far away. I just live in Conscon, so I might actually just pop our email into the chat.
And I just noticed a comment from Jim that your picture's incorrect. So throw me an email and let me know what your address is, along with if that is a neighbor or somebody close by, because that helps me a lot. And we'll get you your correct report. Oh, we got a couple more.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, everyone on the call, for participating tonight. It's been a great presentation. The recording will be available. I'm not quite sure. I'm not the tech person, so I'm not sure how quickly it will be turned around and posted to our friendsofwellersbay.org website. I actually should pop that in the chat as well. And encourage again, friends and neighbors to watch the recording and then reach out if they have any questions or concerns. And yeah, so we're here to help, and would be happy to hear from you. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And Mel, thank you so much again.
No problem.
And we'll be talking before our AGM at least. So
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Enjoy the sunset.